Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. I'm your host Ashwin. I'm joined by Varun. Varun, we are back after a little bit of a hiatus in our 5+ years. This is the first kind of time we've taken more than a couple of weeks off, and it's because Indian cricket has taken a couple of weeks off. How are you feeling, man? It's been a while. I mean, you and I have obviously talked off
Yeah,
the air a lot, but how are you doing? It's great to be back.
yeah, it is. It is, and you're right. In the 5 odd years or 6 odd years that we've been doing this, I can't remember a period of time where we've ever had such a long break.
There's
And
always
we've
been
talked about
something,
it.
right? There's been a B
Yeah,
team going to Zimbabwe or something. There's been
there's
some
always
international
something.
cricket.
Yeah, and we did have a Sri Lanka series, but it just feels. I don't know. It just feels like we've been waiting for this World Cup in for so many years. Now that we got it, I think everyone has just kind of taken their time to digest it. And, because in the past, we've had a situation in 2011 where we won the World Cup, ODI World Cup, and literally like 4 days later, the IPL started and you couldn't digest it. So I, I'm personally, it's okay. I am missing it and I'm missing getting back to it. And no disrespect to Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, but, like if this Thursday, instead of the Bangladesh series, we had South Africa or Australia coming to India and the test series starting, it just would have elevated everything. Still feels a little bit like we need to get back into the groove, but happy to be back.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of feeling like you said. I'm ready to be back, but I'm also not upset that there was a few weeks off, and that just might be because of how you've said this a little bit, but how intense this calendar year was from kind of March-ish timing, maybe even a little earlier, all the way through the end of the World Cup. It just felt nonstop. So it's great to be back there.
And
Yeah.
just a call out, next is going to be equally packed. So maybe that's why we got the Champions Trophy, we've got the IPL, and we've got the World Test Championship. So if you think about it, from probably middle of Feb till end of June, it's once again non-stop. So it's nice to have these breaks once in a while, but I think we're raring to go.
We are ready to be back. We're going to talk a lot. This is the official India versus Bangladesh Test Series preview. There's two tests coming up, one in Chennai, one in Kanpur. There's been some other cricket. Bangladesh has defeated Pakistan, so coming straight off the back of a win, which we'll talk about in our preview. And Australia's playing England, etc. So there's always cricket. Varun, before we get into it, this is not in our notes or talking points. So I'm putting you on the spot, but you are the right person for me to ask. What have the players been up to in the last 4 weeks or so? Because outside of the Duleep Trophy, like let's talk the Rohits, the
Yeah,
Virats, and so I'm mostly asking, what is social media telling you that players have been doing in the last little bit? Just a couple of highlights.
yeah. Actually, it's been quiet. I mean, I think Sky is probably just still roaming around the country, just reenacting his catch. And I saw some crazy, like basically, I think Sky is just coming kind of off that. But generally, I think everyone has been kind of taking time. I'm seeing, like, there are these TV shows with like Kapil Sharma, and you're seeing a lot of the stars going there. You're seeing Rishabh Pant do online podcasts with the Tanmay Bhatts of the world. So I think everyone's just in a little bit more of a chill mode, probably just working out, getting ready. We've always been saying there's this World Test Championship coming up, and they want to do well in that. There's a new coach who needs to still kind of show up in the Test format, because Gambhir hasn't coached India in the Test format yet. He's only done T20 and ODI, that too mixed series so far.
Yeah.
So there's bowlers needing rest. There's Bumrah with his kind of workload management. Shami is still not back. So I just think everyone has probably taken this time to spend time with their families, continue to kind of work out, building on their strength, and then settling in for the next, what I think, 8 to 9 months of a very high cricket season.
So there is the test season is here, right? Bangladesh, then New Zealand, and then Australia. And that's the big one. So there's going to be plenty of coverage, and you can always catch the latest here on Edges and Sledges. Varun, have you seen the social clip of Bumrah when he was asked by a journalist who is I'm seeing by your face that you probably haven't seen this one. You have
I
seen this
did. I was wondering where you're going. Who's the
one.
fittest?
The fittest player, yeah.
Yeah,
Do you want to go through the response? I mean, I don't know how I feel about that, but it was interesting.
I mean, I think everyone is like, I think people have been so coolly starved this year, right? Like, and so he responded perfectly. He said, I know whose name you guys want me to take, but I'm going to take my own name. And I think that was pretty cool. And I do remember, there were these pictures of maybe 5 7 years ago of Bumrah with his abs on the internet, and so he's a fit guy. Like, kudos to him for taking his own name.
Yeah, and the added context he gave is, listen, to be a fast bowler anywhere in the world, you have to be unbelievably fit. To be a fast bowler in India, with the kind of conditions, the heat you're dealing with, etc., is a different level of fitness. Now, you could argue his run-ups like 6 or 7 steps, so he's not doing what a lot of quick bowlers had to.
But think
But
of the shoulder power that's needed for that, and the
absolutely, yeah.
back muscles.
That listen, if you don't take that little clip out of context, I will not say anything negative about Jasprit Bumrah. He's like gold. Just wrap him in cotton wool and preserve him. Right. So, Varun, before we get into the India Bangladesh series, you want to talk to our listeners too. There has been some cricketing action because obviously there can't be none, and it has sort of arguably played into a little bit of the look to the future as we look to. You mentioned Mohammad Shami. That's a big absence right now. We know he's working very, very hard to be back to full fitness, likely for Australia, maybe for New Zealand. He is out for the Bangladesh series. And so quick bowlers is one space. But obviously the Duleep Trophy has happened, right? So there's 4 teams. It's midway. It's still going. Do you want to walk through quickly how it works and what some of the highlights have been?
Yeah, so it's an interesting system. I think earlier it used to be kind of the zonal format, but it's really a way for us to get back into the Test cricket mindset. This time, what they've done is they've created 4 teams, so they've kind of split out these probably list of 60 to 70 players across these 4 teams, and it's got a very interesting point system, which I thought let me share, because when I looked at this points table, I was trying to calculate how does this work. Typically points table are very simple maths, right? Unless I think you're looking at the World Test Championship table where it's percentage, but typically it's like you get points for wins, you get points for draw, and then you don't get points for losses. So as I was looking at it, I tried to kind of dive a bit deeper. This one is interesting. It says if you have an innings win or a win by 10 wickets, you get 7 points. And just the fact that you've called it out is, to me, a
Yeah,
weird thing. That means you're
yeah, yeah,
expecting a
yeah.
lot of these. If you win a match, they've called it match outright win, you get 6 points. If you take a first innings lead, but then don't win the game, you actually get 3 points. And
Interesting.
if there's a loss on the first innings, you get 1 point. So convoluted if I was trying to think about, how does the points table look. But effectively they've broken this up into India A, B, C, and D. I think the captains of these teams are Gill, and I read somewhere that now it's Mayank after the first test. There's Shreyas Iyer, there's Ruturaj Gaikwad, and there's Abhimanyu Iswaran. So these are the 4 captains. India C has got 9 points. Um, India B is at 7, India A is at 6, and India D is unfortunately on 0. So they've played 2 and lost 2. Now the way it works is there's no semis, there's no finals. It's just that the team that comes up first actually then wins the Duleep Trophy. So it's been interesting because I think a lot of the names that kind of we had been um, missing in the test circuit, like a Rishabh Pant, a KL Rahul, a lot of these guys are back. And again, I said this, like, if you think about the construct of our squad, I think the bowlers are quite set. I think with Pant coming back, the wicketkeeper is also quite set. I think what's probably missing is 1 or 2 spots in the middle order and maybe one all-rounder spot. So people are going to be kind of fighting for that. But yeah, let me just pause there before we maybe talk about maybe some of the top performances and stuff.
Yeah, it's been interesting. That's fascinating. Actually, I didn't know all of that about the points format. And in full transparency, many of our listeners have probably had a chance to watch more of it than I have. I don't get a good broadcast of it living in the U.S., so I've been reading about it, but probably haven't followed as closely as I would like. I think it's very interesting. It's great to see that there's still good cricket on. There will always be a domestic circuit, but having something like this that is even more than just the state teams is great to see. B, this is a chance, right? When there's often domestic cricket on, as will be the final games of the Duleep Trophy when there's India playing. When it's on, when there's no Indian men's national cricket, the eyeballs, the viewership, the
Yeah.
engagement is much much higher. And I want to before we talk a couple of performances, I want to pick on the point you made. I saw a data point recently, actually, going into the Bangladesh series that says in the last 5 years in a home series, India's batters have underperformed versus the prior 10 years on average, and bowlers have overperformed, which is not a surprise, right? If you think about who's won us some of the marquee series recently, it's been bowlers. So Varun, although results have been good, constantly making World Test Championship finals, you mentioned something in that middle order. Are you looking for a change? Are you looking for a couple of fresh sets of legs to come into the middle order, if not immediately within the next 12 months or so?
Yeah, I think I saw that stat too, and you know where it came up. It came up in the context of the most runs in test. So there were two stats. One is the stat you showed, we spoke about. Second was the most runs in test since 2021. And Joe Root has played 49 matches with over 4,500 runs at an average of 55. The next best on that list is Khwaja with 29 matches at 2,500 runs. So, yes, there are more matches, but as I go down that list since 2021, there is no Indian in that top 7, 8, 9 list. Okay.
Wow.
So
Okay.
there's no Indian in that list. Now, then you play down with what you're saying. I think it's interesting because the top order just hasn't performed consistently. And what I mean by that is you'll have Kohli at 101 game, Rahane in one game, Rohit in one game, but nobody's hitting century after century, right, in a series. And so I think that's the first aspect. The second is the middle order is actually, or the middle to late has actually got a lot of runs. So when you think of the Jadejas, Pants, Sundars, Ashwins of the world, they've actually got a lot of runs. And then third is really the bowlers. The bowlers have stepped up and won us a lot of games. Now, overseas, the Pacers have done well. In India, the spinners have done well. So they have won us the matches. We'll get into the order, right? Because we know kind of who are the top four-ish. I would say there's a gap in number five before you get into the keeper. I think it's going to be a toss-up between either a very fresh pair of legs, like you said, like Sarfaraz Khan, or a very old hand like KL Rahul. And I think that's what we'll get into when we discuss the squad.
Yeah, just before we get into the squad, then some of the headline performances I'll run through just at a high level on the Duleep Trophy, and names we've seen right around for a while. I'll go through batters, and then Varun, if you want to look at bowlers, we can do it that way. But 6, 7 centuries so far. Ricky Bhui, Mushir Khan, which was great to see. Very like kind of lot of virality of the clips, etc. Very exciting. Abhimanyu Ishwaran, so captain of the side. Pratham Singh, not a name we've seen around a lot, but made 122 in the only match he played. Tilak Varma, seen him around a lot, and then the sixth name on that Centurion list, Ishan Kishan, made 126 ball, 111. I mean, Varun, at some point you just get to a point where you're just happy for the guy, right? Like he's been around, he's been a fixture, he's gone through his ups and downs, gone through the behavioral stuff and disagreements and this and that. But at some point you just feel you're just glad for him to be being back on the cricket field, letting the bat do the talking, right?
Yeah, you are. And especially like with such a gap, the minute he hit that century, suddenly his name started popping up
Yeah.
on all my news, my feed. And I have to be honest, I haven't been close enough to this, but I was reading about Ishan Kishan's comeback, and he's not in the initial
Still calling him
squad,
Asian Kish.
Ishan Kishan, in his comeback.
Yes.
But I haven't read anything. He's not in the first squad, but you're right.
Yeah.
Happy to see him doing well.
Yeah, and then a couple of the other guys, Gaikwad as skipper got 2 half centuries. Baba Indrajit got 2 half centuries. Padikal, who's again felt like a seesaw right in the last little bit, burst onto the scene and then had some tough times, got a couple of half centuries. So those are the big highlights. Rahul played one match, made 57 in one innings and 35 odd in the next. So not bad from a batting lens. Varun, do you have the list of kind of bowling performances in front of
I
you that
do,
stood
but
out?
I just want to talk about one guy before we go move on.
I
Is
knew you were. That's why I was trying to get you straight to bowling. But go ahead.
Sarfaraz Khan's brother. No,
Oh,
I'm going to talk about him also first.
okay.
But Sarfaraz Khan's brother, Mushir Khan,
Yeah.
man, this guy's been, he's much younger. He's been putting in the hard yards. He hit 181 single handedly. I think 1 6 hit the roof. And he and Navdeep Saini were batting, and they just kind of built out this partnership that took the game away. uh, he's a guy to watch for me. So when I start thinking about batting order, kind of, or rather batting pipeline, I do think like Gaikwad and Patidar are the next two in line for the squad. But push yourself 3 years out. If Mushir Khan has been batting the way he has, he's going to be a shoe into the team. So he's the first call out I wanted to make. The second I was going to say is, as you filtered on this list, and just before we started, Ashwin was asking me, why is strike rate important? And I said, it's not. But when you've got Rishabh Pant striking at 119 versus everyone else who's in the 40s and 50s, I think it's worth calling out. So Rishabh Pant, 68 runs, nothing to write home about, but the strike rate of 119. Now, we can all be looking at this, but there's one man in Australia who's going to be looking at this and losing sleep, and that is Nathan Lyon. So keep the strike rate going, Rishabh. And yeah, that was
Yeah,
my plug.
he took a great catch actually, and off of yeah. Anyway,
That's
he
what
did
you're
take.
concerned. I'm worried about how many sixes he's hit, and you're like, he's taking a great
No,
catch.
I read actually. Yes, fair. He took one really good catch, but also I read in the net session that they just had. I think it was today at the time of recording. He showed up and got out to early, and then just started taking it to the cleaners and getting down the track hitting sixes. So there was also a picture that went viral in Chepauk of a six that went through a wall, and that was off the bat of Virat Kohli from the
Really?
nets. Like there's a hole in a wall in Chepauk. I don't know if this was real or not. I didn't verify, so please don't cancel me if it's fake news. But that's what I saw. Yeah, a couple other quick ones, right, Varun? And I use this to get into the squad. Mukesh Kumar, 10 wickets, took 4 for 126, so gave a lot of runs, etc. But picked up 10 wickets, is missing from the Bangladesh squad.
Yeah.
Akashdeep picked up 9 wickets, took a fifer, and is in the squad. And we're going to come talk to them a little bit. Other notable mentions: Khalil Ahmed's back, Harshit Rana's back, kind of in the top of the scene, and then the highest wicket taker at the time of this recording in the Duleep is Anshul Kamboj, who's taken 11, including 8 for 69 in one inning. So it's very interesting to see. We won't. We will run out of time to spend more on the Duleep Trophy, but great to see some names coming back on. Varun, are you ready to pivot and talk about India's or Bangladesh's tour of India and India's squad for it?
Yeah, I think we are. Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to call out one other guy just before we go
Yeah.
into a break. Is Navdeep Saini, and why I'm calling him out is because at least in that first game he did very well. He's picked up how many 6 wickets overall, but he also batted very well. Now
Mm.
that is an interesting one because you've had Ishan Sharma and Kuldeep work on their batting. If Navdeep is working on his batting, that could be an asset too. But anyway, lots of things to discuss. Let's go into a quick break, and on the other side of that break, we will get into the India Bangladesh squad and the series.
Welcome back to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. I said this every time we've recorded, but I'm going to say it again because that's what podcasters do. We are at One Tip One Hand on all the socials. It's the number one tip, TIP, the number one hand, Instagram, Twitter /X, Facebook, etc. Or we're one tip one hand at gmail.com. Email us as well in case that's the only method you use. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're on YouTube, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment below. Right, Varun. 16-man squad had to be selected. It's a few days old. Obviously, we haven't recorded in a little while, but about a week ago, at the time of recording this, the 16-person squad was selected. Let's go through it really quickly, and then we'll talk a little bit about kind of predictions, etc. Because we are playing a side, like I mentioned, who has come off of beating the Pakistan team 2-0. So it could be a very interesting, very competitive series. Let me run through the squad, and then you can talk me through kind of your key highlights. So the 16-man squad is Captain Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, Yashasvi Jaiswal, Shubman Gill, Rahul. Rahul is back in. Sarfaraz Khan, Rishabh Pant, Dhruv Jurel. So Dhruv Jurel again continues on from having played against England. Then in all-rounders you have Ashwin, Jadeja, Akshar Patel. Then you have Kuldeep Yadav. And then your 4 quick options are Mohammad Siraj, Jasprit Bumrah, no major surprises, Akash Deep, who continues on from having gotten selected, and Yash Dayal making his debut. So I want to make sure we talk about Yash a little bit. Let me start with overall surprises.
I mean, I am a bit surprised with Yash Dayal since you mentioned him. I don't know if he's been picked because he got RCB into the qualifiers by getting Dhoni out with the
He had a
slower
good,
ball.
so he did have a good game for India. I'm telling you, at least this is what I'm reading, etc. I think with Shami uncertain, and with the likelihood that going to Australia you're playing 4 quicks almost guaranteed. He's about 6 feet tall. He's lefty, and he gets this kind of with the red ball gets this kind of late bounce, if you will, or he gets a nice little jump off the ball. So it tends to catch the the top of the bat, and that can be really conducive to getting the edge in Australia. So for me, I don't know whether he'll play, but I think they're grooming him to see if he can play now and against New Zealand to be that lefty quick option that can play if you're picking four quicks in Australia. So
Yeah.
that's why I think he's in the setup.
That makes sense. So why don't we start with the bowlers since we
Yeah,
always do batters and since we've got into it. So I agree. I get it from a Yashdayal perspective. I think a lefty is critical as well. If I think 4 years ago, Natarajan was in the squad, but he's just not there anymore, right? And I think Arshdeep is the odd one for me in the sense that he is a premier left armer for us, but I don't know if his game suits the longer format, to be
yeah.
honest. And I have a feeling that the last two World Cups he's played such a crucial role in T20. I think they're just going to develop him a little bit more for the shorter format to make sure he doesn't lose his edge. That's a gut feel, right? Now you've got Bumrah and Siraj. The way I would play this is I would not play both of them together, at least for this Bangladesh series,
Okay.
because it's an opportunity. Look, Siraj and Bumrah are known entities, right? I don't think you need to test them. I don't think they need game practice. So I would say, given Bumrah has been picked, and we need to discuss why he's not vice captain as well. But given Bumrah has been picked for this
Who is
series,
vice captain, by the way? Have they?
Gill, I think.
Okay. Sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't have that in front of me. Interesting.
So, given Bumrah has been picked, I think he will play. I am very, very, very keen to see Akash Deep or Yash Dayal partner him. I just think it is the pitches will be more conducive to spinners. I think these guys will get bursts of 3 to 5 overs. The new ball, I would like to see somebody new.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you. I think the pitch is the key thing you said, right? At Chepauk, do you even pick two dedicated full-time quicks? It's tough, right? Like you're definitely going to play from a composition standpoint, at least three spinning options. Now, we are lucky in that you have spinning options who can bat at six even and still be full-time spinners, which is lucky. But I guess maybe you play two quicks. So to your point, you're probably not playing Bumrah and Siraj. You're probably playing Bumrah and one of Akash and Yash, and maybe the other gets another game. But it is actually, unfortunately for Yash, very, very difficult to test out a selection for Australia on quick wickets in India. It's just hard. So let's go to the spinners then. From a composition standpoint, I've said this a lot before. Do you play Ash, Jadeja, and Akshar? So you get three options of guys who can bat and bowl, or where does Kuldeep come in? He's been almost too good to be ignored, and he has been working on his batting and making significant progress. But what are your three picks for spin? Assuming we pick three, and maybe you don't.
No, I would pick three, but just sharing like with one of my friends, we've been debating this a lot because you've got so you've got four spinners, right? I don't know where you stand in this, but the person I was discussing with thinks Kuldeep should be number one on that list. Okay.
Hmm.
I have a feeling you're in the similar
From a
bucket.
bowling standpoint, absolutely. Then you get
Yeah,
into if you want them to bat at eight, then but
exactly.
yes,
And
as a
then
pure
I
bowler, no
think
question.
given you don't have a second all rounder beyond Jadeja, I think from an all-rounder perspective, actually Akshar Patel has, like, in the last 12 to 18 months, has been phenomenal. He bats at 3 if the team wants, he bats at 9 if the team wants. I think Akshar Patel and Jadeja are certain, right? Just when you also take into account the batting has been weaker in the last 10 years, like you said, spin-friendly tracks, Bangladesh has got quality spinners. I think you're going to play Akshar and Jadeja. So that's my bet. Now, when it comes to Ashwin versus Kuldeep, I'm going to say Ashwin.
Yeah, 516 wickets in
Ex-
100 tests. Like, that's crazy to me that
yeah,
I get it. 100% get it.
yeah.
And what, three centuries? How many does he have now? How many tests? Anyway,
I don't really know. But my point is,
five test centuries. Anyway.
so there you go. So I think that's going to be it. Now, that doesn't mean I don't like Kuldeep. That doesn't mean I don't think highly of Kuldeep. I think Kuldeep should play, but we're going to play three spinners, and two of them are going to be Jadeja and Akshar. So it's going to come down to Ashwin to me. I don't know if you have a different opinion, but
I actually think depends on the objective, right? I think if we have the first match, if you're trying to win, you actually play Bumrah and you play four spinners. That's the unfortunate. You open the bowling with Bumrah and Ash at Chepauk. Now I haven't seen the pitch. I don't know the latest. So, but historically, you open the bowling with Bumrah and Ash, and then you just play the three extra spinners. You could argue if three spinners can't get you 10 wickets, why will the fourth on a spinning wicket? But there's a world where you do it. I don't think they go that conservative. So I think you're. Oof. I think actually Jadeja might miss out, which seems crazy, but not because he's not worth it, but just because Akshar at home is a phenomenon, and Jadeja overseas is your first choice, right? Because of his batting too. So anyway, tough to say, but I think they give Yash Dayal a look because they want to groom him. They wouldn't have selected him in the squad if they're not trying to give him a reasonable look into Australia. And then so it'll be Bumrah, Yash, Ash, Jadeja, and Kuldeep for me as your 7 through 11. Right, let's talk that keeper spot.
No
Do
debate.
Well, fair, but does Dhruv Jurel get a look as
No,
a batter then?
no, no.
Okay,
It's
despite the
just
heroics against England.
there's no heroics. Despite the heroics at the Gamma, is that what you're comparing
No,
it to?
I'm not saying in lieu of punt. I'm saying maybe at 5, at that 5 spot that you were questioning.
Yeah, I don't think so. All
Okay.
jokes apart, all jokes apart. I was just joking. I think Jarrell has done well,
Yeah.
but I think he is going to be seen as the second wicket keeper. I
Yeah,
think that's
fair.
just the way India views keepers,
So
right?
so you have Rishabh at 6 then. You have 7 through 11 we've discussed. Some combination of bowlers, slash all rounders. Let's jump to the top 4 first because I think it's a little easier.
Yeah. So Rohit Sharma, of course,
Yeah.
Jaiswal, man, beast. What a test series he had against England. He
Ridiculous.
is
Just
going
ridiculous.
to be the opener alongside Rohit Sharma.
And that was his debut, right?
Yeah, that was
It's
his debut, and
unbelievable.
just
Just
piled on the
unbelievable.
runs. Like, I mean, I think like even Australia would be worried about this
Yeah.
guy,
Yeah.
right? Especially as you get into your kind of Sydney's. If he just sees off those first 8 to 10 overs, he's going to pile on the runs. Just the
Yeah.
way he bats. Number 3 is Gill. Owning that spot, I don't think there's a way for him to open. I think DJ has said the Prince is going to take over the King whenever the King decides to go. Gill is batting at 3 to be able to bat at 4 in
Which
3
they've all
years.
done, right? Everybody who's batted 4 over India in the last 20 years started at 3, moved on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely.
So Gill at 3, the King at 4, and now basically you're left with KL Rahul versus Sarfraz Khan. That's the debate for me.
Yeah.
Now,
I think the debate is Rahul Sarfraz Jarel, and you've eliminated Jarel already. So,
yeah,
yes,
I've
then it's
eliminated
Rahul
Jurel.
Sarfraz. Yeah.
Yes. I've given my I've eliminated Jurel. Now, for me, don't get me wrong. Like, I think a middle order KL is somebody who everyone wants to see, someone who has worked, and somebody who has the class to be able to pull it off. So I'm going to take my punt and say KL Rahul is going to play.
Wait, I thought punt at 6. Sorry,
Yeah,
that was too
punt
easy.
actually might be at 5.
That was too
But I
easy.
think KL Rahul will be the pick. But I say that with a heavy heart because I actually want Sarfaraz Khan.
Yeah, I actually think at home Sarfaraz should walk into the side. I mean, you mentioned it about his younger brother, but at home his stats are just mind-boggling. For me, I think at 5, I would love to see Sarfaraz at home. Now, it there's a world where punt bats 5, Sarfaraz actually bats 6, but that order is a semantic. There's a world where they get creative from an Akshar Jadeja standpoint in terms of managing lefty righties. They can have some flexibility, and that's the beauty of batting deep. But I would love to see Sarfaraz at 5. I think you might like to too, but your prediction is Rahul,
Yeah,
which
I'm not talking. I 100% want to see Sarfaraz. I do not
yeah,
want to see Rahul. But there's two factors to me. One is what is Gambhir's view on both of them?
yeah,
A little bit unknown. He's partner with KL Rahul at Lucknow. I don't know his view on Sarfaraz. So one is Gambhir's view. Second is if India is in trouble in the top 4 wickets in Australia, for example, I just think you may trust a KL Rahul at 5 to stabilize so that Pant, Akshar, Jadeja can pile on the runs to follow versus a Sarfaraz, who's a bit of an unknown entity in Australia versus Stark Cummins and Hazelwood. That's kind of my long term view.
yeah, very very interesting. I will say I think we're running out of time to do a full double click on the Bangladesh side, and we haven't spent a lot of time thinking about them as much. But phenomenal to get a 2-0 win over Pakistan. Like just full credit to that team. And they come in with some momentum. So I think in a world where we expect, forget about Bangladesh, we expect when Australia and South Africa come to India, we're always predicting 3-0, 4-0, whatever it is, not even a draw, just maximum uh, sweeps. Against Bangladesh, I think I would predict the same. We should be of that caliber. Now we're coming off with guys, some of who have played a little bit in the Duleep, some who haven't played in a while. against a team who has momentum, confidence, and gosh, what it would mean to them to win even just one of the two matches against India in India. So I'm predicting 2-0. Varun, do you disagree? Do you think it's going to be a tougher, closer series than we think? What's your call?
I think it's going to be 2-0, but I think it'll be closer than we think. Just because Bangladesh is coming off this kind of positive momentum, I think Bangladesh bowlers are also very high quality, right? Especially the spinners. I mentioned that before. So, they've got the all rounders, they've got the bowlers. I think their batting is where it's going to kind of come down to. But it's going to be closer than it looks, but it'll still be 2-0.
Right. Yes. Varun, very, very interesting. It's going to be a good series. It starts on Wednesday night. I think it's Thursday for you, so Wednesday night for me. Unfortunately, the India domestic test series are 11 p.m. first ball my time zone. So for our listeners who are in the US, at least in Central Time, I have my commiserations. It's very difficult to watch, but it's going to be a good series. Varun, just before we wrap, I want to ask you about one last thing that has been in the news. I don't know again if it's slightly rumored, real, not. I don't know if you've heard about this. With Jay Shah getting elected to his position in the ICC, there are now some rumors that the Afro-Asia Cup might be making a resurgence. Have you heard about this?
I've heard about it, but I don't remember this Afro-Asia Cup. It has to have happened in our lifetime, right?
2005 and 2007 were the two times. And I was like,
I bet DJ could tell you what the finals was and who
I
was
mean,
the
I can,
score.
but that's because I looked it up, not because I remembered. But it is very interesting as a concept, right? It was intended to help bring more revenue into some of the smaller African boards. So it was an Asia 11 who played against an Africa 11, and 80% of the revenue I think got divided amongst the African board, which is awesome, right? You be able to bring the bigger India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh viewership and
Yeah.
help generate some funds. But I'm going to walk through this because the last time this happened in '07, the ODI squad, or I'll just run through some of the names that played. This was one team, the Asia 11 team, was Jayawardene, Dhoni, Dilhara Fernando, Saurav Ganguly, Harbhajan Singh, Jayasuriya, Zahir Khan, Mohammad Asif, Mashrafe Murtaza, Mohammad Yusuf, Virender Sehwag, Yuvraj Singh, Lasith Malinga, Shoaib Akhtar, Sachin Tendulkar, Chaminda Vas in
What
one
a team.
squad. I mean, it seems insane, especially as you think about how much Asian cricket has grown in the last 15, 17 years, and arguably how much African cricket has taken a step back, with the exception of South Africa and maybe Namibia. What a team that is! Can you?
I mean, I'm thinking who's the coach and the selector of the playing 11? Like, that's a hard job, man.
Yeah, very, very hard job. Jayawardene was captain. There was a T20 squad. It was captained by Shoaib Malik. Again, this was like early T20, if you remember. But Kamran Akmal, Tilakaratne Dilshan, Farviz Maharoof, Sachin, Munaf Patel, those are the only two Indians in the T20 squad. So we've made some
Jeez.
progress. Anyway, it'll be super. So, Ed, do you think it'll happen? Do you think in the current landscape we'll see Indians and Pakistanis playing together on the same team, high fiving each other and celebrating a victory together? Or do you think it's a long shot?
It feels like a long shot, but if it's something that I want to happen, yes, of course. Why wouldn't we? Like, Afro-Asia Cup sounds awesome.
Yeah, and I think
But
if there's anybody who can do it, it's Jay Shah, right?
yeah,
Between his stature, his political connections. So that's the only reason I have a tiny bit of hope that maybe it does.
yeah, absolutely. Let's hope, man. Let's hope for the best.
All right, Varun, this has been fun. It's been great to get back together. Great to record again. I don't think I got your official prediction for India Bangladesh two test series.
3-0 and a 2-0 in a two-test series. That's
Excellent.
what I'm
Great.
representing DJ.
That's great. And maybe the point system will be like Duleep. If we win by an innings and 10 wickets, we get extra points.
Took me way too long to calculate the
Yeah.
points.
That feels like when there was the movement to try to get 8 runs for if you hit it above into the second tier as a six and all that.
That's ridiculous.
Anyway. Right. Everybody, thank you for listening. Appreciate you staying with us after a little bit of a hiatus. We are back to our weekly shows. We are going to be following the Indian Test season. It's going to be great. Bangladesh first, then New Zealand, then 5 tests against Australia. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave us a comment. Reach out to us at One Tip One Hand on all the social medias. This has been the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. Signing off. We will see you next week.